Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play in School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations about the current and future state of travel baseball. Today's call features Spiker Helms and David Birkby, the national directors of the Rawlings Tigers. If you're not currently familiar with the Tigers, hang tight for a year or two. You and everyone else will know their name. The reason I can confidently make that statement will become very apparent as you listen. I hope you enjoy this episode of Travel Ball Talk. All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. On the call today, we're heading out to St. Louis, Missouri to talk with Spiker Helms and David Birkby, national directors for the Rawlings Tigers. Now, those of you listeners out there who are maybe at the older age groups, this is probably a name you've heard of, some, but not preeminently in the forefront the way that I think that the younger age groups, and we're going to talk about this, the reason the younger age groups have probably heard Rawlings Tigers from coast to coast will become very apparent in a little bit. So, Spiker, David, welcome to Travel Ball Talk. I'm looking forward to learning more about Rawlings Tigers. How about you each introduce yourselves so that we know who is who, and give us the 30-second bio.
Sure. So I'm David Birkby, and I'm one of the national directors of the Tigers. My background, I live in St. Louis, went to high school here, started my baseball career off at a junior college in town called Merrimack Community College. Then I went on to a Division II university in Rawlings, Missouri called Missouri S&T. After I was done with my baseball college career, I wasn't good enough to keep playing, so I went on to Lindenwood University to get my master's in sports management, which kind of led me here, and I've been working for the Tigers for 9 years since its inception.
And my name is Spiker Helms, and I've been with the Tigers since the start, off and on, and then I came full-time, I'd say about 5-6 years ago. And my baseball background is similar to Dave's. I went to the junior college route. Actually grew up inside club baseball, went to junior college, then went to Missouri State. And then after that, I played pro ball for 3 years, traded, cut, release, you name it. That was me. And then I majored in economics, and I was going down the financial route, thinking that, hey, I want to go into hedge funds or go into just traditional banking. And I thought to myself, you know what, this is just not me. I find it very fascinating, but my true passion is in baseball, and I want to help out players as much as I can because I was a byproduct of club baseball, and I'm a huge believer in it, that it provides opportunity.
Awesome. You know, obviously I love travel ball too, and that's why I'm sitting on the phone on a cold November day with you guys, hosting this podcast here. That's good stuff. You must have bumped your head somewhere along the line to give up the fortune and fames of the world of finance, though. Before I go too far, I want to make sure. I always do this at the very last minute. I figure I'll do this at the beginning. What we can find today, all the information will be at playinschool.com/Helms, HELMS. That's Spiker Helms' last name, HELMS, playinschool.com/Helms. And their websites and Twitter will be there, but that's twitter.com/Rawlings_Tigers and Rawlings Tigers with an S.com. I always do that at the very end, but I'm pretty sure nobody ever gets to the very end. So we'll just put that little commercial right there. So give us, David, you say you've been with the Tigers now pretty much since its inception. Why don't you spend a few minutes, tell us about the president and founder, how the Tigers came to be, and what the early days of Tiger baseball was all about.
Sure. So Aaron Jaworski is the president and founder of the Tigers. And he also owns Balls and Strikes, which is a franchise company and a facility in which we operate out of in Baldwin, Missouri. I started working for Aaron back in 2010, right as I got done and graduated from my undergrad. And I was going to school around his facility and kind of knew that he ran camps during the summer and had some lessons and everything. So when I was in grad school, I was looking for a part-time job. So I reached out to Aaron and started working for him doing miscellaneous, facility work. And that was right in the time in 2011 when he had the idea to start the Tigers. And in St. Louis at that time, there were a few clubs, Spiker. I mean, maybe, 4 or 5 clubs in the area. It wasn't very prominent as it is today. So he decided to do that and tie that in with the facility. And so I was actually at the first tryout in 2011. I think we had 25 kids in high school show up for, we didn't even know how many teams we could, get out of that. And we started the first year, and we actually did fill 1 team per age group. I believe it was 9 through 17U. And we had a couple of good teams, but honestly, we probably took our lumps that year. But our focus has never changed since that day, and it helped us go forward, and that is providing the absolute most value and development that we can for our families and players. And so a lot of those kids, despite having, not great years, all wanted to return. And the word kind of got out about how we were organized and just the people that we had working for us at that time. And we started to gain more traction in the area, and that kind of led us to grow steadily each year. It allowed us in 2013 to add on to the building that we were originally using. So we started off in I believe Balls and Strikes is 12,000 square feet. We had 7 cages in it. And we were able to then, in 2013, add on our first Tiger Center, which is adjacent to the building. And that's a 3,000 square foot building that was just 2 cages, but it was able to house all of our teams for training for that winter. And teams loved it. It was Tiger branded. We kind of put our mark on our facility, and again, just kept our heads down and grinded and kept focusing on development, customer service, being there for our people, promoting more value every single year, and just, again, and kept growing. So in 2015, we were able to add on an additional building to that. So we added on a 10,000 square foot Tiger Center that's also adjacent to our building. So we're sitting now today at roughly 22 to 25,000 square feet, give or take. In 2017, we started what is called our regional program, and that was an idea to take what we had in-house in St. Louis and be able to repurpose it elsewhere and find like-minded individuals who had the same values, same beliefs that we did, and be able to take the Tigers outside of that, which kind of leads us to where we are today, where we're at 138 teams nationwide in 20 states and 32 cities.
Oh man, you jumped the shark. We're going to get to that in just a second. That's powerful stuff, man. Where in that time frame or that timeline did Spiker jump into this thing? Was it before scaling out to the different states?
Well, I'll actually preface this. Spiker's been around here well before I ever got here. He can tell you better than me, but he started out as a lesson guy here.
So I started out actually mopping the floors, balls and strikes, and cleaning the upstairs and making sure that everything was running smoothly on a janitor scale to make it sound a little bit more professional. But it was a way for me to hit inside the facility for free.
How old were you? Was this when you were in school, high school or college?
This was so I started actually on camps in high school just to get my foot in the door for summer, thinking ahead and saying I need a place to hit in the winter because there was no club inside this facility, and the facility was literally right down the street from my house. And so I started in camps, and then after that, I asked Aaron, hey, can I clean some floors for you? And he said, you want to do that? And I said, yeah, for sure. And then he's like, okay. And then I was able to hit inside the facility. So that's how I started with Aaron, and ended up growing from there. And we just kept in touch as I was going through my college career. and my professional career. And this facility is one of the main facilities in St. Louis that housed many of the big name guys that you hear in Major League Baseball, because it was one of the few facilities that was very, very clean and was well run back in the 90s and early 2000s. And then once the early 2000s started, that's when facilities started popping up everywhere inside St. Louis. So that's how I started with the Tigers.
Well, I would hope it was very clean.
I wasn't part of that in the 90s and early 2000s, though. I'd say that. There's some other guy.
Gotcha. Now, okay, since David sort of jumped the shark on us and spilled the beans, I want to get back and highlight this again. And this is what I was alluding to in the introduction, where the Rawlings Tigers, primarily based out of St. Louis, Missouri, a few years ago, have now spread their wings and have teams across 20 different states, encompassing, I think you said, about 130 teams. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Can you just talk to us about, I mean, how I'm just thinking, how do you go from a few years ago, you have you have a tryout and you have one team at each age group locally, to fast forward to 2019, and you're going to be pushing 150 teams before you blink. How does that happen? What did that take on your side as far as the vision to make that possible? How did you find those? You mentioned like-minded people who share your values. How's that all go down?
Well, first off, I'm going to say I don't think it was easy. Aaron brought this idea to us, 2 years ago, and we have 8 full-time staff members here in St. Louis, so that's all we do is Tiger baseball. So he brought the idea to us 2 years ago, and thought that we could, bring what we're doing in St. Louis, which we thought and do think to this day that we were doing very well, and find other people that would like to do that with us. And so we got together and, we have a system in place that we feel is pretty unique and intriguing to outside people who, whether it's a dad who's coaching a team who, doesn't have enough time in the day to do all the stuff that a coach team needs to do, or whether it's a guy who's out there looking to grow, a club, we feel like we can service those people equally. And it's really just bringing the in-house value that we have here in St. Louis and distributing it elsewhere. And then the key was what I said earlier, was finding people that align with us. I mean, we're not for everyone, and we never could be. But I think we're hitting a chord with a lot of people who are looking for the same things that we provide.
And what was interesting, I want to add on to that, is that what was interesting is that it started off with a single phone call. And I remember taking the phone call, and I was actually working the front desk for lessons and just booking clients and making sure they're taken care of. And then we got a phone call from a gentleman out of Southern Indiana, Clarksville. His name's Dan Thurston. And I talked to him. He's like, "Hey, I'm looking into franchises, and I'm thinking about balls and strikes." And I started talking to him a little bit, and I said, "You know what? Facilities are great, but club baseball is starting to pop, and I think that's something that would be very interesting if you do a facility, is to add in a club." And he said, "Well, what club's inside your facility?" Said, well, and I started having a conversation on the Rawlings Tigers. Well, next thing you know, I give him Aaron's number, and then Aaron talked to him about the facility, but then also started exploring the Rawlings Tigers. And he's like, "I have no idea how to do club baseball in another city." And then we started brainstorming and thinking about it, and then that's when Aaron came up with the idea of, "Hey, let's go down this regional program route. I think this is going to work. And we can do it and be able to serve people and help players get to where they need to be at." And because we know that it's a system that works. And that's the big thing. It's the system that worked, and we wanted to expand it because we know that the kids are going to benefit from it.
here's a quick plug right here. If you're listening to this and this sounds kind of intriguing to you and you want to find out more information, I think you can just go to rawlingstigers.com and click on the there's a link at the top, something about join the Tigers, and you can probably just call up David or Spiker and find out more information. But
Absolutely.
you know, I know you guys would be willing to talk to anybody, but I know that we also we don't want to necessarily share all the secret sauce here on the air about how you grew to be in 20 different states. But let's ask kind of a more specific question regarding travel ball and these 20 different states. I'm more involved because of what I do with recruiting videos. I kind of hang out with that older age group, right? So I'm less in tune with what's going on at the call it 14U and down. Give us a breakdown on these. I think you said about 130 teams. How many of these teams are youth teams versus the older age groups, the high school age versus the youth age?
I would say roughly 80% are probably more considered youth,
Okay.
Which is your probably 7U to 14U age grouping, and then 20% would probably be in high school.
Which is, honestly, it's probably not that different than, a standalone organization that's got a bunch of teams in-house under one banner. That's probably about the same ratios. So that's pretty interesting, and which is why I kind of led with, I think the youth travel ball people would possibly be more familiar with Rawlings Tigers, the brand, than the older age groups, just because there's more of them. You're talking about probably 100 teams at the youth age group running around the country wearing your logo. Very cool. I've got a bunch more questions about the balls and strikes stuff, but I think I'm gonna just shelf that for now.
Okay, all right.
But because I want to get in the travel baseball, I want to get into the recruiting. I want to talk about those types of things that are more about this older age group that I deal with. Let's take a short break from this call to talk about my day job, video. In 2019, if you aren't leveraging film to market your guys, you are doing them a disservice. So where do I come in? Well, filming one guy on your iPhone and texting it to coaches or posting it to Twitter is easy. But filming 25, 50, 100, or 200 is really hard. And that's why you haven't done it already. That's why smart coaches partner with Play in School. We do all the work. We come to you. We can film 100 guys in the time it would take you to film just 4 or 5. If you'd like to see every team we partner with, visit playinschool.com/teams. Contact me today to discuss the details. Now, back to the call. The first piece of this, and Spiker and I spoke the other day, and he started going down this topic, and I said, wait, don't even go there, because I didn't want him to have to repeat himself. And so I took a note here about the importance of range versus outliers. Spiker, does that ring a bell to our conversation the other day?
Yeah.
Will you take that concept and unpack it and tell us what the heck is on your mind about that?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a book out there by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers.
Very famous.
Very, very famous author. If you've not read his Talking to Strangers book, it's a must read. But anyways, we'll go back to the outliers. So his whole concept was that he wanted to figure out, why is Tiger Woods Tiger Woods? Why is Serena Williams Serena Williams? Like, how are these great people becoming that, like, amazing at their craft? And the premise of the book, I don't want to spoil it if no one's read it yet, but the premise of the book is that you needed 10,000 reps or 10,000 sessions to accumulate that training that you can become that type of person. And I think he uses 10,000 hours. I think that was the actual number.
Yep.
But there's another book by David Epstein, who is I wouldn't say a disciple of Malcolm Gladwell, but they're really, really close friends. And he took the other route, which is the range. And he disagreed with Malcolm and said that there's more instances of athletes at the professional level or high A-list actors that have range where it's not that they're specified in a certain area. And what we saw in baseball the past 10 years I've seen is that everyone says, oh, you need to be more specialized. You have to be specialized in this certain area. And when thinking about it, I was never like that. And every guy that I played with was never like that. I don't think I ever played with one person on my college team or my professional team that was specifically made to play baseball, as in that's the only sport that they played. Now, they did go down that route in high school around junior year, senior year, where they ended up not playing certain sports, but they still picked up extracurricular activities outside of sports that helped them with conversations, being able to negotiate, that type of stuff. So for when they got into professional baseball or college, what have you. So when our conversation, I was so adamant about it, and I was like, people need to realize that the kid needs to have a lot of areas of like a smorgasbord of things. So whether that's basketball, that's baseball, that's football, outside of sports, acting. I was actually in Bellarmine Speech, which is a big organization here in St. Louis that helps kids act in front of classes and act in front of big audiences, which has helped me with my speaking. And I also did art, and I also played the saxophone. So it was all these different things. And every person that I've been around that has been successful has had that same type of mentality is we need to have a lot of things. And then we can start specializing from there, because you're going to grab skills from certain areas that you probably would have never gotten if you just specialized in baseball. And if we can go even further into more of a niche type of conversation, I'm not just going to teach someone to play shortstop just because that I want him to play shortstop. I want him to play all types of positions, because there's something in outfield that's going to help the shortstop become a guy that's going to chase a ball just beyond the outfield or the infield area and into the shallow area of outfield. So I think this notion of specialization is a great topic, but I don't think it's for everyone. I think that they need to be more towards the David Epstein type of book, The Range, than Malcolm Gladwell's The Outliers.
I tell you what, I love this conversation. This is reminiscent of what's kind of going around right now, skill stacking. I think they've referred to this as skill stacking, where maybe instead of attempting to be the best person at this one thing, which there's only one of the best in the world of each thing. But if you can take a variety of skill sets and be really good at a unique combination of skills, you could be the best person in the world who has that combination. And that's easier to attain than just being the best fill in the blank of one skill set. So this is very cool. And the other thing that went through my mind is somebody who is so one-dimensional bores the crap out of me. So somebody who has a variety of interests and a variety of skills is much more interesting. And I think if nothing else, you won't bore people at the cocktail party when you get older if the only thing you know in life is baseball. So that might be an added bonus for you young folks who are thinking about maybe adding some skills beyond that. Very cool. What?
Can I add on to that? Is that like even if we think about it, I know this is more of a coach's podcast. Like even as a coach, I'm more attracted to a player that has speed, power, arm, and is super athletic than a first baseman that just hits home runs and strikes out a lot.
Exactly.
You know? Like I would love to have 9 athletes on the field. I think 9 athletes are going to beat the donkeys any day. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. I think there's some truth to that. Now, speaking of these athletes, I guess this goes back into the Tiger facilities here for a second. You had mentioned when we spoke the other day how y'all feel that there's a certain way that y'all think about training over there with the Tigers. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, I can go first, and then Dave can talk about the pitching side. I think from an overall standpoint, it's the communication aspect. So there's a traditional way of coaching, and then there's this alternative way of coaching, and trying to add in certain technologies into that arena. And I feel like with a lot of things that players are advancing a lot faster in certain aspects of communication than our coaching staff has. And so we try to troubleshoot that and try to figure it out. And we've come up to this conclusion that you have to add in technology because kids are more responsive to, I shouldn't say kids, but players are more responsive to the technology side, and they're able to communicate at a higher level when it comes to that, which I think is actually a better situation because you can get a lot more things done through technology than just traditional teaching.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah. So at our facility, we have Blast Motion. We just partnered up with them, and when considering all the tech pieces, and that was one thing that was super interesting in the last couple of years, is that everyone was jumping in on certain products. And we sat back and we said, all right, we could jump into this or we could jump into that, but let's just see how it plays out first. It's too early to tell what's going to be successful. And it's going to be unique to us that we're going to be able to use it every single day and be able to use it at scale. And so after looking at all the tech pieces from going to the ABCA convention, having conversations with professional guys as well as college guys, we landed on Blast Motion. And the reason we did that is because every kid can have a sensor, and then we can have a conversation with them and being able to track everything that's happening in real time. And we can also go back and see trends inside of their swings. So that has allowed us to, like the other day, I literally had a player text me and say, hey, Spike, can you go onto my Blast Motion and see what you're seeing? I was like, yeah. So I went into Blast Motion. I did a quick video analysis. I drew some lines, and I sent it back to him. That conversation took me 10 minutes, 5 minutes at most, where if he would have came up to me in a training session, which they still do, I'm still thinking about Billy, Timmy, Jimmy, and I'm not worried about Arden, who just came up and asked me a question about his hitting, because I'm still worried about 3 other guys. But then he got me in a setting where I was at home, I could answer my phone, and I was laser focused on just him, and I could sit there and analyze his data and sit there and look at his video and say, you know what, let's do a comparison between him and Judge. And so I did a comparison, drew some lines, and I sent it back his way. And the next session he came in, he had a phenomenal session. He absolutely crushed baseballs left and right. So that was the power of teaching through technology.
And I'll add on to that, Rich, just something that Spiker was just saying that I think that our staff does really well, but there's a lot of staffs out in the country that I know of that do an incredible job of this. And I think it's really important. And it's that building a relationship between the coach and the player and really starting there first. He took time out of his day to help that player outside of work, and that goes so far with that player and that relationship. Because once you build that and you get those guys to buy in and know that they know that you're there for them at all times to help them, then those conversations can go so much deeper. You can get into the why are we doing this and what are we doing it for? And when the players start to ask those questions, which honestly is not easy to get them to start asking those questions, but when they start doing that, those are the times where I think we've seen the players just develop at such a more rapid pace than anybody else.
Well, and to add on to that, the thing I was thinking about was the how it goes beyond just the transaction of a 30-minute hitting lesson, right? And because I could see where some coaches would probably never be in a position where kids calling them up after hours outside of that 30-minute lesson. And so, yeah, I agree with you where that relationship and the open communication that player and coach had right there allowed that to even take place. Forget the technological piece of it, but the interaction. So kudos to you on that, and having a nice piece of tech to be able to help you. That's just a bonus. That's pretty cool. I've been hearing a lot about Blast Motion, and they're not the only ones out there, but it does seem that a lot of the facilities, a lot of the organizations are implementing a variety of technological platforms that are aiding them not only in the teaching component, but in my world, which is more of the recruiting space. We're seeing all kinds of tech come into play. But you know what? I think it comes back, just to kind of reiterate what David says, is it comes back to that relationship, to that ability to communicate. Cool stuff. David, you want to talk pitching on the topic of how y'all are thinking about training?
Sure. You want to go the high school route or the younger guy route?
It's up to you. Both. Neither. I don't care. Whatever you think.
Sure. Well, right now, I'll just say, because we're right in the thick of things with our high school guys right now. These guys are, at least in the Midwest, they won't really start throwing until a little bit later as their seasons kind of start in March, April. But with our high school guys, how we focus it is we have a pretty sequenced out approach as to how we go about it. Right now in the Midwest, a lot of our guys are coming off of fall baseball, and so we are in a strict no-throw period right now. But that doesn't mean that we don't work. So what guys are coming in right now doing, they're building up their arm care routines. We're trying to teach them the whys, what you're doing, why you're working on this side of the shoulder, why you're working on that side of the shoulder, why you're working on your scapular region, why you're working on your range of motion, your mobility, all of that. Right now, that's where we're at, building up their arm care routines and making sure that's a part of their daily process. Then we're also using different things that you see, like Eric Pressy's work with med balls, different types of explosion and rotational movements, bounce and different stability type movements, so that we can still work on our mechanics and the overall movement. I don't use the word mechanics all that much, but I know it's a popular term out there, but working on the overall movements of a pitcher and making sure that we can sequence those up together. And then we'll, as the months go through, we'll start to build in throwing. We'll do a very detailed arm strengthening build-up before we ever touch a mound. And then once the pitchers are ready, arm strength-wise and have done enough throwing and they can handle a 30 pitch count bullpen, then we'll start those and build that up into their high school seasons.
Cool. When you say no throw, are you talking about no pitching or literally no throwing in baseball for those pitchers?
For right now, if a guy let's just go back in time here. Let's say a pitcher has started throwing with us last year in December-ish.
Yeah.
And then has thrown all the way through high school, which is in the Midwest and most areas is like March through May.
Mm-hmm.
And then he threw in summer.
Yep.
And then he even threw some in fall.
Yep.
Well, let's say he racked up 70, 80 innings and has thrown for about 10 months straight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a pretty big believer that arm needs a little bit of a rest.
Yeah.
So we don't throw him at all. Now we're still doing arm care, but we're not throwing at all for at least probably, I hear a lot of numbers out there, but I think for the solid 6 weeks.
Wow.
Good. They're probably not throwing. And then we'll be very careful with how we bring them back.
Yeah. I don't hate that. I dig it. In this day and age where kids are throwing, I mean, it's not with outside the realm of possibilities for a sophomore, junior, even senior to throw for 12. Oh, you stack 12 months back to back, you got 24. All of a sudden, you could see a kid who could literally throw for 24 straight months. Yeah, without a week or 2 or 3 or 4 in between. So a forced break of 4 to 6 weeks is, I'm all in. I like that. I like that a lot. Very good. So let's talk a little bit about these older kids and specifically about some recruiting topics. When I spoke to Spiker the other day, he had touched on this sort of the responsibility of club coach versus high school coach versus the responsibility of the player. You want to talk about that a little bit as far as what's in your mind and sort of the higher level thought process of the Rawlings Tigers.
Yeah. So, and I think this is just a general philosophy that I think that it hasn't been really well communicated overall. And we have a college night every year where we bring in high-profile coaches. Like we had Beezer in from Mizzou. Last year we had the University of Tennessee's head coach in. And every year we have these conversations about the player needs to do this, the player needs to do that, the club needs to do this. And I was like, we can just simplify it as maybe just in one sentence. And that is that there's a responsibility of the club and there's a responsibility of the player, because there's so many players now that are trying to pursue the ultimate dream of playing college baseball, which ultimately you're getting paid to play a game at a very high level, no matter if you're Division I all the way to NAIA or junior college, which is a huge, huge honor in itself. And I think most players think that the club is the ticket to college baseball, which it's an avenue, it's a doorway, but it's not the ticket, because it goes back to a person. It goes back to that player. And I always think that it takes two in the relationship to make the relationship work. If one person walks away, the other person is going to be sitting there standing alone. So it has to be mutual. And when the club meets the player at the halfway point, and they meet that player at the halfway point through resources, tournament schedules, being able to get into high profile tournaments that are invite only. They also help with the training aspect, which is the knowledge part of it, which is a huge, huge component that a lot of people kind of overlook, that they don't think that the knowledge part is the big one. But I think that's weighs even more than the tournament schedule and the resources that are involved with online. And then it's going to take the player. The player has to give us at least 50 to 60%. They have to get to that point. If they go to 60%, I guarantee you they're gonna find a spot somewhere, because they're totally invested, they're totally involved. And what that means is, if they're going 60%, that means that they're putting in extra reps. That doesn't mean like, okay, after a session I'm gonna stick for 10 minutes and then I'm gonna call it good. It's I'm gonna spend that 90-minute session with the training, and then I'm gonna go for another hour, and then I'm gonna wake up in the morning and do weightlifting, and then after that, before school, I'm gonna research some colleges. I'm gonna send off some emails. I'm going to try to network myself with these college coaches. Then I'm going to go back, and in the afternoon, I'm going to reference to my club directors or my club coach and say, hey, I reached out to these people. I just want to keep you in the loop. If they do call, would you mind talking to them? If they do call or they end up asking you a question, just wanted to give you a heads up. Like, that's the 60%. But they at least have to go 50% to where the club's at, because we can't go any further. If you go any further, then we're taking your hand and we're walking you to the college campus and saying, hey, coach, this is Jimmy. He wants to play here. Can you please take a look at him? Like, well, I don't know Jimmy. I don't know who Jimmy is. Who is he? Like, the player has to put in that effort, because, and that's just life in general. And thinking about if we spoon feed it and we hand them off, they're going to be unsuccessful outside of college, like totally unsuccessful. And that's what we're preaching here with the Tigers is like, meet us halfway because we're going to get you there. Just meet us halfway and then try to go another 10% because we'll find a spot for you and you will have a successful career and you'll be playing and you will be starting. I promise you that.
I love it.
I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to recruiting and college baseball and just life in general.
I teach a full course on this that you can find on my website, but you just did basically the master class in under 5 minutes. And here's the sum up of it. Life, not only recruiting. Listen, recruiting is part of life. Life happens through networking, but you also have to be proactive. And that's what you just said. And those are the words I heard, where you, the coaching staff, are going to put forth effort for a kid that is putting forth effort for himself. Putting forth effort for yourself is called being proactive, and then your network is going to help you. That was
and I'll say this too is that there are a lot of free resources out there, but more importantly, if you really want something, it doesn't matter the cost because you want it so bad. And when thinking about tools, if I want to get something, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to find the tools that are going to make me successful to get it there. So if someone needs to get a master course or a master class, buy it because that knowledge that person has as an expert in that area, you need to get that knowledge because if you don't have that knowledge, you don't know what you need to do. And that's the same thing with club baseball is that I would spend less on an aluminum bat. They're ranging up there to $400. I mean, I could see $500, $600 someday. Why would you just not pay the $400, $500 for a bat and then spend it on knowledge? Mm-hmm. Knowledge is so important. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable, but it's the most undervalued thing in today's world, and that's across any industry, any industry. But a MacBook Pro or an iPhone or just the fancy items, that's what people value. But in reality, it's the knowledge. Like if you can get the knowledge, you're going to get yourself where you need to be at.
I love it, man. And hopefully maybe there's a parent or two or a kid or two that's listening to this, and you have to recognize the fact where your network is going to be super important, but your network is going to work so much harder for you if you're showing that you're taking ownership of your own process. Because at the end of the day, you and I and David, we're not, I don't think any of us are going back to college to play ball. We're done here. Like we're done. I'm not going to get back to college. I wouldn't go back to college if you paid me to right now. It's the kid, it's his opportunity. It's his future. It's his college. That's in the balance. And if he's not putting in any effort, well, why should I? Why should you? Why should David? So yeah, man, you gotta take ownership over your own process if you're a ball player, so that your network can see you, and they're gonna want to hustle for you. And at the end of the day, man, the way the real world works is by leveraging your network. That your network is key, but they're not going to want to work for you if you don't want to put in any effort. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I like how you broke that down. Absolute masterclass in 5 minutes or less. Hey, there's a couple things, kind of some low priority things, and then I want to talk a little bit more about kind of travel ball in general. First thing is, I want to hear about y'all's names is Rawlings Tigers. Can you tell me about the relationship that y'all have with the brand Rawlings?
Yeah, so, well, first off, we're based here in St. Louis, and so is Rawlings. And they're actually based roughly about 10 minutes away from our facility. They're actually getting ready to put on an event here tomorrow at our facility to showcase a lot of their new bats and all their new items. But our relationship with Rawlings is we have a really personal relationship where we can call up a lot of the employees there, whether it be our own reps or people in the uniform design or product design, and Spiker's met with them, et cetera. the relationship is very personal, and it's obviously it's helped our name brand awareness because we're partnered with, the worldwide, baseball, softball company. But it allows us to just be on the forefront of everything with them. We go to uniform designs on their brand new uniform designs every year, and we're some of the first people to work with that. And it's just a really nice relationship to have that's 10 miles away.
Cool. I'm not sure I knew they were in St. Louis. So that is good. There's plenty of organizations with relationships, to some of these big brands. At the end of the day, a lot of that is marketing stuff. So to hear that they're 10 miles down the road from you and it's more of a personal, sort of a family connection, that's pretty awesome to hear. I like that. So I'm glad I asked that. I almost didn't. Now here's one I want to ask about. I think this is going to be more in Spiker's court. You guys put out a ton of content, or at least you used to put out a ton of content. I don't know if you're still putting it out at the rate you used to. Spiker, you talked about the speaking class that you did before, and some acting and some saxophone. Mm-hmm. You are not shy in front of the camera, are you?
No, and I do contribute that to my Bellarmine speech coaches back in the day when I was in 5th grade. But it was very intimidating when I was younger, and then as I started getting older, I was like, man, I really want to do that. I want to jump in front of a camera and just start talking, because I think I have some knowledge that is valuable to people, that is my own unique experience that no one else can duplicate. And I thought, you know what? I want to get myself in front of the camera. I want to learn how to edit. I want to learn how to distribute it, and because I think it's going to help a lot of people. And off that notion, it was literally everything that I was thinking about in college. The first 2 years of Rawlings Tigers is literally like, it was a lot of motivation stuff. It's because it was a lot of the stuff that I was dealing with inside college, like the ups, the downs, like what the insecurities, like all of that stuff just came out on video. And I think it really depicts what kids are dealing with on a daily basis, the guys that are trying to grind it out and trying to make it. And even the guys that are, they have this dream, but they don't have the support, the emotional support to pull it off. And so when creating content, that's what I did for the first 2-3 years when I was with the Tigers. And then now it hasn't been scaled back by any means. It's actually, I'm putting a lot of informational, knowledgeable stuff that you can actually use for like practical advice that you can use in a cage or on a field. And we put that in our VIP section for our players and our parents and our coaches. So a lot of the things that I'm working on now is housing in our VIP section, which with our directors, helping them on how do you help out 10 teams at a time, 12 teams at a time when you're a one person, or even our coaches, like what do you do with parents? Like, we just got done finishing up a program called A+ Coaching Program, where one of our coaches, who was a superintendent in the St. Louis School District, he taught a program on how do you deal with parents and how do you communicate correctly to them, as well as tournament directors, and how do you communicate the message that you want to create a lasting culture inside of your own community, which is your team. So those are the things I'm working on right now. And I want to try to get back to where we are feeding that Facebook feed and that Twitter feed and Instagram, because I do think that a lot of people outside in the public see a lot of value in it, and they're actually using it.
Well, I'll tell you, if you're listening, you go into their YouTube channel or Facebook or Instagram and scroll back a little bit, what you're going to find is a variety of different types of videos. You're going to find some vlog style stuff that they've done in the past, some instructional, straight up baseball instructional stuff, and some interview stuff. I know I've scoured through a lot of those, the interview style videos that you'd put out a couple 2 to 3 years ago. I mean, it was some college coaches, pro scouts you had interviewed on there. pro guys. It was some pretty good interviews in there. I recommend it. If you head to their website, you can find the links to all their social stuff. But good stuff, and definitely no fear of the camera. You also had a guy give your buddy, one of the Tigers coaches, who was like sort of your partner in crime in a lot of these videos.
Yeah. So his name's Ryan Romero. We were actually roommates in junior college, and we ended up starting a company, and we're still working with the company and still trying to get it going. It's called Tournament Guy. But him and I are kind of we're real brothers. Like, it's like we'll fight each other, we'll laugh, we'll share good times, but I always have his back, and he knows that I'll always be there when he needs me. And so when I wanted to jump in on the Tigers and create Tournament Guy, he was all in. He jumped in. He moved from Omaha to St. Louis, and when we started creating videos, he was at the forefront of that, and he wanted to help me out as much as possible, and he had a lot of great ideas. And so he started filming himself and really creating content. Right now for the Tigers, he's actually moved into a different role, which is he's one of our main coaches. He's a huge influence inside our program when it comes to teaching in the high school program in St. Louis. But he also helps me out on the social end as well. Right now, currently, he's helping with the Facebook side of things. When it comes to finding like-minded coaches who want to join the Tigers, and he's also trying to find directors as well. So he's kind of taken not a backseat, but kind of went behind the curtain and helped out on the back end of things. And he's a huge role, huge player for us. So.
Awesome. As far as in front of the camera, video content, I'm not sure I can think of another organization that put out the quantity of stuff that y'all put out in the last 3 years. So good on y'all for that. Now let's talk. This is a question I ask pretty much everybody that comes on here. I kind of want to ask you, what do you think about the current state of travel baseball? And we can talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right? Obviously, I like travel ball, so it's not all travel ball bashing here by any means. I think there's unbelievable opportunities. So when I say, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it's more about looking for possibly opportunities for improvement, if you will. So talk to us about travel ball. If, David, if you want to talk about the younger ages and the older ages, and Spiker, you can jump in as well. What are you seeing that you're loving? And I'm kind of curious with y'all's experience with the younger ages. Is there anything you're seeing down there that maybe needs to be brought up to the older age groups, or vice versa? So take that and run. I want to hear positives. I want to hear some not negatives, but opportunities for to make this travel ball world a little better.
Well, I think at the younger ages, it's growing so rapidly. The whole industry is just, it's getting so massive. And with that, I think it's creating a lot of really unique opportunities and experiences, especially for young baseball players. Back when I played, it was, you played your 15 league games in town, you played against the same guys, and maybe one tournament, and that was it. You didn't really have any unique experiences out there other than the park that you played at. Whereas now, with all these really amazing facilities that are popping up all over the country, from Grand Park to Lake Point to Shipyard Park to the Rock to anything out the Triple Crown does, and there's just so many really, really cool experiences for young players to have, that I think, especially at that level, that's what those guys remember. They don't remember that they won the 12U county trophy. They remember the great time they had at the Ripken experience, or at these great places that are popping up at a rapid pace because the industry is evolving and growing. So, just in the last 5 years, those experiences have doubled, and it gives a good layout for what a youth player can experience. And I think that's really important, because obviously we harp on the baseball side, the wins, the losses, but at the end of the day too, I think it's a really, really, really cool experience that these young players and coaches and families get to have within that space. So
let me interrupt. You used a word about 100 times, and I love the word experience. And I wish that we could marry the seriousness that comes along with the recruiting and the showcases and the tournaments and the combines that we see at the older age groups with the experience part of it. I don't know if that makes sense, but man,
yes,
gosh, I know Lake Point's an awesome facility, but it's still in Atlanta. Why, can we move that? Can we move that to the beach so that we can have right?
I'm with you.
Right. So now all of a sudden the family that's going around the world playing travel ball can have an awesome experience. Because I just wonder how many families take their summer vacation to Atlanta, frickin' Georgia, and how many people, when they thought about family vacations and in their dreams down the road, they probably never envisioned that's where it would be. So that's one thing for me. I'd love to marry that idea of the experience with the seriousness and the that tournament play, the recruiting aspect. Gosh, man, the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce is not going to be my top advertiser on this show, I gotta say.
Well, and that's what's interesting about tournament companies like Triple Crown Sports and Ripken, because they have it in those unique locations. I mean, even Game Day USA has some really good events and some locations that are like, whoa, I didn't even know that you could do that. Like, Aaron sent his team to Triple Crown Sports up in Colorado, which was in Steamboat, and they're in the mountains playing. That's an unbelievable experience. I mean,
that's a summer vacation.
When I was young. Yeah.
Absolutely.
They had a phenomenal time. And it was still good baseball. It was really, really good baseball. So. Okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I love what you were talking about with the younger age groups as far as the experience piece. Do you want to continue on your thread, or let Spiker jump in as far as what's the good, the bad, and the ugly that you guys are seeing? Continue with any part of that.
No. I mean, that's probably my good, especially on the younger side. I think the older side, obviously, there's more pressures on your travel, I would say. And I mean that from, kids are worried about recruiting, and parents are obviously worried about that, but there's still a lot of great experiences to be gained by that. There's obviously baseball, I think is you can go to some of these tournaments and you can find some of the best competition in the world that's going to push these kids. And you see guys out there just doing some really spectacular things at a younger age level of 16, 17 years old that you just didn't think you should see at that level. So I think baseball as itself, because of travel baseball, because of the competition factor, and because all these unique facilities are bringing together all these great teams, and so the whole level of play is gotten better, in my opinion.
I agree 100%. I think the physical skill set of today's player is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I would say, good, bad, and the ugly. I think I don't want to trash on the saying, but I do think it's the good, the bad, and the interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And what's super interesting about it is that money has helped, which is funding into organizations, as well as putting value in club baseball, has actually accelerated, like you said, the skill sets of players, which has made them unbelievable. And what's happening though is that at a lower income level, that's something that I am concerned about. I think about this all the time. Is I love what Major League Baseball is doing with the RBI program, and I think there needs to be more more going towards that. And I think that's going to help help the game expand even more. Because I think I take the quote from Babe Ruth, like his biggest thing was, I just want to expand the game. That's my biggest goal in life, is expand the game, because it's the greatest game in the world. And from my standpoint, that's why I'm in this thing, is because it teaches a lot of things that players need, not just for college and getting a scholarship. Like, that's great. I'm totally cool with it. It's awesome that you're going after that. But the biggest thing for me is, how many CEOs, how many upper management people, am I going to get a Nobel Prize person in this organization? Like, I want to be able to give them the skill set that they're able to accomplish dreams and goals outside of baseball. And I don't know if that sounds corny or just out of the blue, but I really do think that that's what the game is really for, is to help those people get the foundation that they need to accelerate outside the game.
No, you know what? For a 14-year-old, playing college baseball probably sounds like just an incredible goal. We're going to put that out there, and that's my goal. But honestly, if playing college baseball is the best thing you ever do in your life, then I feel kind of sad for you, because
Sure.
that's just part of it. Not to I don't know if that comes across the wrong way, but there's so much more beyond college baseball that life has to bring, that eventually it becomes a small part of the story. It's not the story. It's just a small part of it. Here, along those lines, I'll bring up, just some personal experience with regards to providing opportunity on the baseball side. This is a much bigger topic than we probably have time for in the last few minutes of our call today. But I've seen where travel softball is light years ahead of travel baseball in probably a few ways, but the main way I'm thinking of right now is in fundraising. So I'm thinking about, there's a team I've worked with in the past that runs a budget for their top team, not the entire organization, for one team. They're running the budget over $100,000 for the team. They fly everywhere they go. Everywhere they go, all summer and fall. They fly everywhere they go. They're playing in tournaments and all over the country. Mom and dad come out of pocket for the year, $300 for the year. So I would say, if you're a pretty good ball player in this, and you want to play for those guys, money is no longer part of the conversation, because everybody can come up with $300. That's not going to prevent you from playing. Money will not prevent you from playing for one of the top teams. It's going to fly all over the country and literally play in front of college coaches from West Coast to East Coast. Now I look at the travel baseball world, and I see people that bring up the topic. Moms and dads complain about the price. We all acknowledge the increasing prices and costs of this stuff. But I don't see anybody who actually wants to do a lot of fundraising. I'm talking about the parents. You give them the opportunity. Sure. They're complaining about the price. You give them the opportunity to do a fundraiser, and they go, I'd rather just write the check. So I feel like there's something in the world of fundraising that could have dramatic influence and change over our entire industry of travel baseball, if we can figure out a way to create adoption of it.
And I don't think we're at the disagreement. I don't think anyone's in disagreement that, like, tournament costs are just crazy right now, which is like, just looking at certain sites, I'm like, holy smokes, that's a lot of money. But I do think that,
but people keep signing up.
With cost.
Yeah,
it's demand. It's high demand for those events, but more important, there's a lot of costs that are involved that a lot of people aren't thinking about.
Yes.
Which these really immaculate fields, they just didn't pop up.
Right.
There was a big penny that had to be spent to
Right.
get that big of a stadium up and
Yes.
running, and being able to keep that surface immaculate.
Yes.
So again, it's demand, and it's also the overhead costs that are coming with these tournaments.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not going to begrudge anybody for running a good business and running a service. Obviously, those prices are going up because there is a demand for it, and teams keep signing up. I think I think tournament companies would lower their price if they weren't getting so many signups.
Well, and Rich, the tournament companies, some tournament companies are going away at times because they're not able to satisfy the customer when it comes to the demand side of things, whether that's the customer service side, which is being able to answer a phone call or an email at a moment's notice, or even the umpires, having umpires that show up on time. That's super important for tournament companies. And because, you'll be surprised, the ones that do it really well, if we talk about Grand Park and we talk about the big name players, they handle their umpires like crazy, as really, really well. They run them really, really well. And that's why Grand Park's Grand Park, and they have a great facility for it. And one thing that's never mentioned is the grounds crew. Mm-hmm. The grounds crew is working their tails off, and that's what makes a really good event. But a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of tournament directors that are actually losing out because they're not able to get the teams because they haven't made a name for themselves and they haven't provided the services that a typical business.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else?
No, it's good. So I've been thinking about that for a while.
Tell me, I haven't been out to Grand Park. I've seen some photos or videos of it. Where exactly is Grand Park?
It's in Westfield, Indiana. It's a suburb of Indianapolis.
Okay.
Probably about 20 minutes northwest-ish, I believe, if I'm right. But it's beautiful. I mean, it has more sports than just baseball, but it's got quads of high school and youth fields on. Gosh, I don't know the exact acreage. It has football. I know the Colts are out of it. It has a massive indoor facility.
Oh, sweet.
I mean, I feel like I'm a spokesperson for it, but it's great.
Walking talking billboard.
That's awesome. And y'all are out there with a variety of teams all the time, I'm assuming.
Yep.
That's incredible. Listen, this conversation about the money in sports could probably go on forever and ever. The fundraising thing has been in the back of my mind for a couple years now. Maybe somebody smarter than me will figure out a way to get travel baseball to adopt it's such a weird thing, and I don't know how much. I think y'all do some softball, but it's almost like different cultures between travel baseball and travel softball. And I try to remind people, we, the baseball community, should be learning from the softball community because they're way ahead of us. And what I mean by that is we, back in the day, had alternatives like American Legion and like Babe Ruth, that the softball world was already into travel softball when we were still piddling around with the local American Legion stuff. And so I feel like they figured some things out that maybe travel baseball will 10 years from now. And travel baseball is going to be like, oh, look what we invented. Look at this fundraising stuff. And I'm sitting there scratching my head looking at these softball teams who are running $100,000 budgets for one team, and mom and dad are out of pocket $300. Figure that out. David, any kind of parting shots here for the 2 or 3 listeners who are still with us?
No, I mean, listen, I appreciate the opportunity. I think anytime that you can get out there and talk about it and talk about our industry and obviously the goods and what we can work on, it's only going to help everybody else. I think we're a lot stronger together than we are apart, and that's something that we always try to remember here. And we don't look at, we look at this whole thing as we're all together in this. So just appreciate the time here and having us on. So.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna put David and Spiker's Twitter handles on the show notes page, which will be at playinschool.com/Helms. And Spiker, any parting words of wisdom for us?
Not wisdom, more of kudos to you, Rich. I know creating content is tough in itself. It's a lot of networking, and it's a lot of labor that a lot of people don't really realize when it comes to the editing side and getting something up and out and actually with high quality. And I think from this podcast, it's a mastermind. That's kind of how I view it. And I think club owners that are listening and people who are thinking about getting into the industry, really listen back to the episodes and really deep dive into them, because there's a lot of great advice from each club owner. Now, I would love for you guys, if you're thinking about getting into the industry, I'd love you to be Tigers, but that's my brief plug. But again, kudos to you, Rich, and thanks for having us on.
You got it. No, I'm not afraid to plug it one more time. If there's somebody who is listening and they feel like maybe they're on an island out there by themselves and they're looking for some support, Rawlings Tigers might be a good opportunity for you. Just head over to their website, and I'm on it now. If you click on the Join the Tigers tab, there's a drop down, and it literally says Become a Tiger Director. I don't know what happens when you click there, but I bet it's going to give you some more information, and it'll probably put you in touch with these two guys, and you can go from there. But guys, I've enjoyed it. Is pretty cool learning more about the Tigers and y'all's philosophies and values. So thanks for coming on. We will talk to you again soon, and try and stay warm out there, will you? All right, thanks. That's all for us here. See ya. I'm having so much fun bringing these shows to you each week. If you'd like to recommend a coach for the show, please don't hesitate to shoot me a note at rich@playinschool.com or DM me on Twitter @playinschool. Again, my name is Rich Prado. I'm the founder of Play in School. My goal is to continue to create products and services that add value to you, the travel ball coaches, your players, and their parents. Visit playinschool.com to see some of the ways we're doing it. Or better yet, let's set up a call. Until next time, thank you for listening to Travel Ball Talk.